Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. My name is Ankita Goswami, and I lead the business value team here at Benchling. Today, we're going to be talking about a framework to assess digital maturity within your company. Specifically in this presentation, I'll be talking through the importance of digital transformation and identify some challenges around its adoption, talk through a framework for assessing your digital informatics capabilities, and I'll end with Benchling's experience conducting digital maturity assessments. Jumping right into it, studies have shown, time and time again that investing in informatics solutions to help your R&D organization can only lead to benefits. In particular, we've seen that they can drive near-term value, such as streamlined scientific workflows that increase scientists' productivity and improve collaboration. Also, these tools really drive the standardization and centralization of data that ultimately improves data quality. And over the long term, realizing this value across all of these dimensions over time, we've seen direct, tangible impacts to the business, such as, improved scientific and operational decision-making, shortened development timelines, and decreased R&D costs. So really, we're talking about transformative potential that these solutions can deliver, especially if they're strategically deployed. And strategic is the key word here, which we will get to in just a second. And we've seen that, biopharma leaders acknowledge the importance of this. In fact, according to a recent study by Accenture that surveyed 250 pharmaceutical executives, 72% of those R&D leaders agreed that digital is critical to achieving their R&D imperatives. This is actually a 200% increase since 2016, which says a lot. Clearly, there is momentum behind this. And several studies kind of point to the reasons as to why these R&D executives are behind digital. According to several studies, they believe that digital will help them gain insights into the execution of business strategies, improve the efficiency of their R&D processes, and really fast track key candidates to certain scientific milestones. However, our research has shown that these leaders do not have the framework to know where to begin in order to make successful investments. As a business value team, we've worked with several pharmaceutical companies to understand the maturity of their informatics capabilities. And what we've learned, and it's an overarching theme that we've seen, is that biopharma companies look to digital solutions to plug an immediate gap in their evolving scientific workflows. In fact, we've seen that 88% of biopharma leaders note that digitalization in their company is actually happening in silos. These solutions are, homegrown, maybe not purpose-built for R&D, or they're point solutions that are just not consistently deployed across their organization. And the lack of holistic strategy in actually deploying these investments results in major challenges, such as a lack of end-to-end sample traceability, lower data quality, increased scientist time spent on logistical or administrative tasks. Basically, an informatics landscape that defeats the purpose of adopting digital solutions in the first place. And this actually, this problem actually compounds and progresses because R&D leaders do not have the tools to be able to measure the value of the investments that they have made. So they don't have the data in their hands to make smart changes. In the same study, 60% of biopharma companies mentioned they're struggling to measure the success of their digital investments. So why is this the case? Why is this true? We think that there are three main reasons for this. The first being a lack of an industry nomenclature associated with defining your R&D digital informatics capabilities. Secondly, there isn't really a defined framework to evaluate these capabilities. And lastly, there hasn't been a clear process to track the success of these digital investments. Through our experiences learning firsthand about our customers' digital landscape, we've put together perspectives on how R&D, IT, and business leaders can strategically embrace digital informatics and develop a roadmap for change. We think that there's a three-step process to do this. First, you need to assess your current state digital maturity. look at the systems and processes that you have in place right now. Understand your current state limitations. From there, define your ideal future state. Where do you want to go? What are the goals that you have for the organization? How do you want to up-level your team's capabilities? And how can informatics solutions really help you get there? And lastly, measure the business value. Ensure that you're getting the value where you need it, and prioritize your next steps in your roadmap. So assessing digital maturity is a very important precursor to digital transformation. It's hard to just jump into digital transformation without assessing your current capabilities and understanding your areas of gap. And like I said, we've identified some key axes to think through your capabilities to understand where things are going well and where they might not be going so well. So to start, you'll need to evaluate your technology, assessing the systems and tools you have in place to enable your R&D teams. So this includes your digital infrastructure. So what systems do you have in place for data capture and storage? It also includes data management. We know that R&D teams generate terabytes of data. So how is this data captured? How is it managed? And ultimately, we don't want to deploy tools that users don't like to use. We've seen quite often that those types of tools end up just being dumping grounds for data. So with this axis, evaluate how frequently and with what quality are your users engaging with the systems. And lastly, IT agility. We all know R&D workflows change frequently with new innovation. So how efficiently are your systems responding to that? And how flexible are they to adapt to those needs? And when you're evaluating your digital landscape, you might think that this is it, but actually tech companies or tech actually enables processes and teams to do their best work. So from a capabilities perspective, we need to broaden our definition to include how your tech investments drive teams and vice versa. So that includes evaluating your capabilities from a process perspective and from a people perspective. First off, we have data sharing and collaboration. So how efficiently can users collaborate within and across their teams, both internal teams, external teams, leveraging the tools and systems that you have in place? Next, we want to know how more organized data can lead to better insights and promote scientific decision-making. Then, from an operational standpoint, can we use the data to support better resourcing, better study planning, maybe better forecasting? And lastly, as we get into development workflows, compliance systems are of utmost importance to teams. So are your processes and systems up to quality and regulatory standards and requirements? Cohesively, these 8 axes make up the majority of the capabilities that you need to consider when evaluating your digital maturity. Let's look at one in more detail. Let's look at the data management axes in more detail. At the lowest level of maturity here, capabilities might include manual or siloed data, a lack of standardization across the team, and many errors in data capture. This might lead to low data searchability, limited data access, and lower data quality. As you move and progress into maybe a medium level of maturity, you might have more improved data standardization. You might have templatized protocols in place and ways that that drive more standardization of your data capture. But you might have manual processes around it or fewer errors in your data capture. That could lead to poor data searchability still, maybe suboptimal data quality, but improved data access. And lastly, at the highest level, data is centralized and standardized. You have real-time data capture through automation. Errors are flagged intelligently, and that results in global data search, simplified data access, and high data quality. As you're going through this process, it's important to be honest about your level of maturity. You might end up finding that you're very mature in some areas and lacking in others. But where you're at the lower end of things, acknowledge it, understand why you're there, and create a plan to move up the curve. For the data management access, you might find that currently, your scientists are capturing data manually across various spreadsheets, internally built tools that are not connected to one another. You might discover that each person has their own preferred methods for capturing their data when it comes to like naming files, noting observations. And this is just a lack of standardization across the teams, which makes it difficult to, compile the data and analyze it holistically. And finally, due to these issues, you might find that on occasion there are errors in the sample data. And by the time the error was discovered, it was too late and the experiment needed to be redone. So given these issues, the current state of digital maturity for this axis might be here. And you might decide that, through your next deployment of investments, you want to move up the curve to here. And eventually, you would go through this exercise for each of your evaluation axes as we defined. And by doing so, you'd be able to understand the areas where you have robust capabilities, as well as being honest about your areas of gap. And when you're armed with this knowledge, you can then seek the right tools to kind of strengthen the capabilities that you need. So earlier we saw that digital adopters in biopharma struggle to measure value from the digital solutions that they've invested in. So here we're trying to propose tying value metrics to each evaluation criteria to understand whether or not the capabilities that you are invested in are actually having a positive impact on your organization. Taking our same data management example here, some metrics could include the following. How much time is spent on data search and compilation? What is the level of ease in finding sample metadata or data? And how many errors are forcing repeat experiments? This is just, a short representative list, but you'll see that in aggregate, these can have a significant impact. For example, for improving productivity, shortening timelines, eliminating errors, and improving decision-making. You can repeat this process for other evaluation axes and track your value over time. And the digital solution, as a digital solution is progressively adopted by additional teams across the organization, you run the same assessment and you ensure that the value that you expected is actually occurring. Ultimately, this will help you understand if the digital solution is providing value where you need it to be, and you can use it to justify the continued investment or, identify required change management processes that you need to deploy. We go through this process with many of our customers, and I'll talk through one example here. This is a business value case that we did at Benchling for a top 20 biopharma customer. The situation here is that this was a large biotech developing biologics across multiple teams in a very intricate scientific workflow. We found that they had legacy systems that led to data silos. They had manual processes in place, their data quality was quite low, and they had issues doing accurate study planning or actually running, getting data insights to help with their scientific and operational decision-making. This resulted in an overall low maturity at the outset. Benchling came in and we were able to deploy our entire product suite and really help them get to an ideal future state across multiple different capabilities that they were looking to up-level. By addressing their key areas of limitation, we were able to drive a higher level of maturity 6 months post-implementation. Additionally, we were able to track the value across the key axes that they were interested in. So you can see here on the right-hand side from a data management perspective, as well as the data sharing collaboration and their access to operational insights and forecasting. We were able to track that value over time for them. I'd like to wrap up and just say, stay in touch. Um, me and the business value team at Benchling would love to hear from you. So feel free to email me directly and we're happy to get a discussion going. Feel free to also keep up on our thought leadership, which is an evolving area for us. You could also follow us on our blog and social media. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about our product, feel free to visit our website and request a demo. Thank you all for joining me today. It's really been a pleasure. We will now open it up for some questions. Thank you.